Buenas, buenas, buenas. I'm Vanessa, the host of Chicklet, a podcast to empower women. Each episode, I'll unlock the power of stories by exploring popular chicklet themes and use them as a starting point for insightful conversations. Today's episode is on the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawab. And we have Dr. Cassandre Dunbar as a guest today. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yep, Cassandra.
Cassandra. Oh, okay. Amazing. Love that. Do you go by Cass? Is that how people call you?
Yeah, like if you know me, it's Cass. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, okay. Yeah, cuz
Hmm.
the way that we like interacted with each other was Jess Colombrito. She gets her hair done by my cousin Tatiana, who you also know. And I'm
Hmm.
such a creep. Like I'm the little cousin that like whoever knows my cousins, I'm like, "Ooh, who are you? Like let's be friends." Like that's
Hmm.
just always how I am. So I know Jess because I'm a weirdo and I stalk my cousins. And she reposted your static post being like, I want to be on your podcast. And I really loved that post. I know we've talked about it before, but I love how like direct you were and how you were like, this is what I want. I'm putting it out there. Reach out to me. So I was like, I want you to be on my podcast. So it worked out. So thank you for being here. I'm excited
Thank you for
to.
having me. Thank you. When I posted that post, I was like, oh, I felt uncomfortable. I felt a little bit vulnerable. I'm like, you know what? People can't read my mind, and this is what I want. So let's see what happens. And you reached out, so I'm happy to be here.
Yay, so exciting. What did you think about the book?
I like her. I've been following her for years, and this book was on my to read list for a long time. So when we connected, it was like finally a reason to actually like stop saying you're going to do it and just do it.
Right.
A lot of it resonated and hit home in ways that I didn't even like consider. So like the types of boundaries, I just knew, okay, boundaries, we all need them, but like she really broke down things into a way that like made more sense to me. So I liked it. What about you?
I loved it. Like you, I followed her on Instagram first and through Instagram saw that she had her book. And I think that, it's so easy for people on social media or people who are delivering content to deliver content for people like teaching people about another demographic. Like
Mhm,
that's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of like Latinas specifically. I'll speak to my demographic, right? I've seen a lot of Latinas who their platform is educating like white people on the
mhm,
Latina experience. And so
mhm,
what I really like about Nedra is that she's talking to like black women. Like a lot of her
mhm,
posts are specific to her
mhm,
demographic and
mhm,
to people who are marginalized. And so I
mhm,
really that's something that I really like about her is that she's speaking to us and she's not
mhm.
educating other people about us.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that I try to do too. Like, obviously, there's an educational piece for people who are listening who are not part of our
Mhm,
culture or whatever.
mhm,
But that's something that I strive to do with my podcast too. And like my platform, it's like I want Latinas to feel heard and I want women to be heard. And I feel like
mhm.
Nedra does a really good job of doing that. And so I was like, we have to do this book.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. The content where it's like educating other folks about our like experience and play, I'm just not it doesn't resonate with me. And it makes sense because I'm not their target.
Right.
So I'm just like, okay. So like what you're not saying anything that's like groundbreaking is what I find with those posts. So I'm just like, okay, it's not for me. Which so they're doing their job by speaking to those people. So yeah, I hear you. I do.
And it's needed, right? Like people have
Yeah.
to be educated and like that's great that they do that, amazing, but there's another way to go about it and it really resonates with me. One of the things that really stuck out to me and something that, we were talking about earlier before we started recording, it's like your boundaries are a reflection of how willing you are to advocate for the life that you want.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a new concept for like marginalized people. I feel like, my mom specifically, she is an immigrant from Colombia. And
Mhm.
so she did not have boundaries. She could not advocate for the life that she wanted, right? All she could do was work in order to have a roof over our head and food on the table and make sure that we weren't getting into trouble. Like
Mhm.
her life was not for her and her happiness. And so this book really encourages us to focus on ourselves and make the
Mhm.
life that we want. And so, that's something that it's like not a new concept, but it's really nice to like be reminded of it.
Yeah, a nice reframe. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
For sure. I think one thing that we have in common is so my mom immigrated to the US too. So she's from Haiti. So I'm Haitian.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, and I think this is kind of an aside, but now that I'm older and I'm an adult and I've been here my whole life, this is where I'm born and raised, and I think about the possibility of immigrating somewhere else. And I think about how hard it had to be to uproot and leave everything that you know, like the culture, the language, just like the physical like landscape, like your people, and to go find a new life. So I just think about how brave it was. And in a way, even though when they got to this country, like your mom sounds similar to my mom, there was a lot of work in making sure that the kids stayed on the straight and narrow, right? So I think in a way there was a lot of advocating for the life that they wanted, maybe not necessarily for themselves, but like if I can't live out this dream, and maybe part of it was coming to the US, then maybe my kid will be able to reap all the benefits of all of the sacrifice that I've made. So I think even in their like struggle, they were fighting for a better life for, if not them right now, their kids and their kids' kids.
Yeah, I hear you. And you know what? I appreciate you reframing that thought because I think that that's really common in like our cultures. It's like
Mhm.
your kids are your priority and
Yeah.
you want the best for them. And so who am I to judge them and be like, oh no, you weren't prioritizing yourselves? Like maybe they were. Like maybe they
Mhm.
really got fulfillment out of giving their kids 110%. And
Yeah.
that's how they decided to live their lives, right? Like, so I hear you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I think that there's another layer too, like knowing the little that I know about Haiti and like knowing what I know about Colombia. Like, I feel like my mom specifically came to the US, she didn't really have another option. Like
Yeah.
they're like staying in Colombia and staying in Cali specifically, like there's a really high like Afro-Colombian population
Mhm.
and so they experience a lot of like over policing and
Mhm.
all of that those terrible
Mhm.
things. And so
Mhm.
Cali was not a place to progress and get an
Mhm.
education and like be safe. So she
Yeah.
had to come to the US. And like
Yeah.
same with Haiti, right? Like I know
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are talking about Haiti now, but Haiti has been struggling, since the
Since its
beginning of
inception.
time, exactly, since
Yeah.
its inception.
Yeah.
So it's like our parents had to come here. They were
Yeah.
almost forced to come here and
Yeah.
they gave us everything that they could. Um,
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Similar.
yeah,
Like the option, what she told me was like, either because she finished high school and she wanted to go on to like university, but like her family doesn't have it. And even if you do go to college there, like especially as a woman, and at that time it was like she came to the US in I think the 70s. So before I was born, some years before I was born. And she's like, okay, so you go to college and then what? Like you wait for a husband and hopefully that husband can give you a life and hopefully he is good to you.
yeah.
Like there is no like independence, and she's always had like this big spirit and wanted to do things by herself, and there really wasn't that option there. So yeah, very similar.
And then I feel like I mean, I don't know, I won't speak for you, but like I feel like I kind of carry the torch of that. It's like I try to cuz my mom also your mom was like independent and she wanted to
Hmm.
like live her own life, but circumstances,
Hmm.
whatever. My mom
Hmm.
is super outspoken. My
Hmm.
mom still to this day, you could say it's hot out and she'll be like, "No, it's cold." Like she has such a big personality and it's like I feel like I kind of carry that on and like I feel like I'm doing that with the podcast or even having these conversations with people and being able to have
Yeah.
these conversations and have a podcast like it's such I kind of feel like I'm carrying that on and kind of living out what she kind of wanted or what she could have had she
Yeah.
been born in a different time period kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's like we carry out our parents' dreams, even without even knowing that is specifically their dream. And even as I have kids, I have two little ones now. Like even things that I don't say to them, I can see myself like they're expressing, like that expression of me in them,
Yeah.
as their own little independent beings. They're just like, I mean, we come from them, right? So of course we'd
Yeah.
have some things in common.
Of course. Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Good for
Yeah.
you. How have you like set boundaries? Because I know that, in the book she tells us like you have to identify your boundaries and then you have to communicate them. Like what are, you don't have to overshare on the internet, but like what are some like boundaries that you kind of want to like highlight?
For me, it's been a process. It's been such a process in, first of all, knowing what our boundaries are with myself first. Because I think when we talk about boundaries, especially like on the internet, boundaries are like, well, it sounds like people are putting up walls from people that they actually care about. And I'm like, no, those are not necessarily boundaries per se. And I had to learn boundaries for myself. I think for me, I had to know my limit. She talked about like having the idea of like the plate, like how much is on your plate. It took me learning to like look at my plate, assess the plate, and say what I can say yes to and what I can't say yes to in the moment. So being firm with myself and taking myself seriously in order for other people to take me seriously. So as like a woman, as a mom, as a wife, like there are all these like competing responsibilities, and I want to say yes to all the things, but I literally cannot. And what I've learned is if I don't practice certain things, for example, boundaries and knowing my limits, my kids are watching and they're going to repeat the same things that I do. And then I'm going to burn out. And if I'm burnt out, I'm not helpful to anybody or
Right.
let alone myself. So that would be the first thing. I guess just like establishing what are my own personal boundaries before I can go outward.
Yeah, and I feel like it's such like a privilege because we were talking about how I'm doing that right now. I'm literally looking at my plate and I have this like mini part-time job. It's only 5 hours a week. And I
Mhm,
was like, "Oh, this is perfect, like a little extra cash, like a small business, I'm helping them." But then I
mhm,
find myself feeling like a failure because I'm not able to do all the things that I want to do because I only have 5 hours to do it. If I had
mm,
40 hours a week, I could get it all done and it would be like, oh, I'm accomplished. Look at these things. But
yeah,
because it's 5 hours, I'm like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm doing a bad job. I'm failing this small business
mhm,
owner. And
mhm,
that is like an issue that I've been struggling with on top of dealing like and producing the podcast. Like
mhm,
and I've noticed that among so many other things, I'm moving, I live part-time in Texas, so we're going to be moving full-time to Jersey. That's
mhm,
another stressor. I'm part of a Latina nonprofit as well. I'm
mhm,
on the board. I'm the director of something there, of the
mhm.
podcast committee. And so it's like, to your point, I have all these little things and they all are
Yep.
like calling me and I want to give all of them 100%. And
Mhm,
then because I can't, I feel like a failure. And so, to your point, I've decided today that I have to prioritize the podcast.
mhm,
Like, and it's not about saying no to the Latina nonprofit. It's not about saying no to the small business that I'm working with. It's not about saying no to my Texas friends. It's about saying yes to myself
that's
and
right.
and my priorities, the things that align with me. Because when I say no to the podcast, no, I can't read the book. No, I
Mhm,
can't, make my notes. No, I can't schedule time with people. That's saying no to me and my future and my goals, and that really hurts your soul.
that's
Like,
right. Yep.
it really brings you down when
Yep.
you are saying no to yourself and no to yourself and pushing yourself away
Yeah.
while saying yes to things that are important to you, but there's nothing as painful as saying no to yourself. And so I've noticed that, in the past few weeks that I need to start saying yes to myself. And that's I think what boundaries are. And to
Yeah.
your point, like you were saying your kids are watching. I have a lot of moms who listen to the podcast and it's that I talk about that all the time. It's like your kids are watching you. So if
Mhm,
you are super unhappy and you're burnt out, they need to see a mom who it's okay to like be like hurt and sad and go
Sure.
through things, but they have to see you come out of it. It can't
Yeah,
it
bounce
can't
back.
be it can't be normal to see mom like fucked up in the game. Like it can't like that
Yeah,
can't be the norm.
right.
That's a bad like example,
For
because then
sure.
your kids, they're going to ignore themselves. They're not going to
Exactly.
prioritize themselves.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And you said in the beginning, like, it's advocating for the life that you want. So constantly saying no to you and the things that bring you joy and bring you fulfillment is not advocating for the life that you want, you
Yeah.
know? And like you said, like with time, like it's like part of you dies and you'll look back like, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, time flies. And you're just like, dang, I said yes to everybody else and everybody else is flourishing based off of how I've been supportive of them. So maybe if you were to like up your time with the small business to like maybe 10 or even 40 hours a week. So yeah, you're helping them and that's amazing, but what about the things that you want that make your soul happy, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's what's the point of all of this, really and truly?
Yeah. No, and I think that part of the hesitation of saying yes to yourself and saying no to other responsibilities, part of the hesitation is that a lot of people don't get it. As she
Mm,
even Nedra even talks about it in the book, it's like people are going to struggle when you say no to them.
for sure.
They're not going to be happy when you say, "No, girl, I can't go to your dog's birthday party or your, 37th birthday party or go to Atlantic City for the weekend." People aren't gonna be happy when you put up your boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've had to be really intentional about in the past few years. It's like I have to surround myself with people who love me anyways,
Yeah.
like who understand that I am a complicated person.
As
I
we all are.
Yeah, and like I have a podcast, and so that's not, I don't have a 9 to 5, and so I have a podcast and I'm focusing on something that's like not traditional, and I also don't have a lot of money. And
Mhm.
people get frustrated with that too. Like, no, let's go on the weekend trip. It's only $1,000. Like, girl, my last
Right.
paycheck was 12 months ago, bitch. Like, you want me to go on this trip? What are you talking
And
about?
also in this economy, only $1,000 my ass. Like groceries are damn near 500. Like
Literally. So it's like, and like, when people don't get it or when people get upset or disappointed, like I think that that's okay. When
Mhm,
people get disappointed and you let people
mhm.
down, I think that that's a part of life. And
Yeah.
I think there you have to get, specifically when you're doing boundary work, you have to be okay with disappointing people. That's not to say fuck you and fuck your feelings. That's
Right.
not at all what boundaries are. It's
Right.
about communicating with people and saying, I'm sorry I disappointed you. I wish I could go, but I
Mhm.
need to prioritize X, Y, and Z. And
Yeah.
I hope I don't lose you as a friend in the process. And
Right.
I have quite a few people who get it.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I've been able to curate my space like that,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think the ones who get it, and those are the ones that really matter, especially in this season of life. Like, when things are not easy peasy, you know what I mean? When there is a little bit of struggle, the people who are still there with you are the ones that really matter. And one thing that she mentioned in the book too was you have to teach people boundaries. So if I've been used to being a certain way, right? So if I've always said yes to you and now I start saying no, it's like, who is she? Like, I don't even know this person anymore.
Yeah.
And that's true. You don't know this new version of me. So I have to teach you, like, it's still me, but it's me like 2.0, a little bit different, So I can't say yes all the time. And I'm going to communicate as to why. Like, either it doesn't feel good to me anymore, or I can't in this season because resources are limited, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's whatever. Like, this is where I'm at right now. And if you love me like you say that you do, like, you're gonna go with me on this journey to be my 2.0 version self. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've definitely practiced with people. I have a cousin who I've literally, we've butt heads and struggle through things. And I've
Mhm.
literally told him in the past, I think like 2, 3 years ago, I'm like, I've never had a conversation like this before, so I'm gonna practice right now. So if
Mm.
I say something that you feel like hurts you, like I want you to know that I've never participated in a conversation like this. So I need you to like kind of work with me and understand that I'm trying something new. So not only are we struggling, but like also this is something new to me too. And it's like
Yeah.
I think it's really important to like be vulnerable with people and
Yes.
have those conversations and let people give people the opportunity to hear you and be that for you, because if you
Yeah.
just like are on the sidelines taking notes like, oh, that's what they said and this is it, period, it's like that's not, that's you're not letting the relationship grow. And I think
Mhm.
having those conversations about boundaries and changes that you want to make or future goals, I think it's like a really good a chance to connect with people and strengthen
Yeah.
the relationship. And it's hard.
For sure.
It's hard. It's so hard to have those conversations. Like I get why people avoid it, but
Mhm.
I think it's really important that we try to do that and practice with
Yeah.
trusted people.
I think those type of conversations, like, yeah, they're difficult, but those difficult conversations make the relationship deeper.
Yeah.
Like, you go from having like a more surface level relationship where you see each other out or you only hang out when it's like something fun happening to like, no, this person is like become one of my inner circle people because they know what's going on. And we've butt heads a little bit. I think real relationships, there's going to be an area of conflict, but what keeps you to the next level or takes you to the next level is how we move through this conflict together, you know? And I really love that you preface the conversation with, I've never had this conversation before, you know? So I'm practicing. I think, yes, that vulnerability is essentially what's going to like get us deeper and like really make the relationship not only more intimate, whether it is like your intimate partner or your friend or your family member, but it's also going to like provide some longevity and give you some wiggle room so that way if you do fumble or that person fumbles, like they know you more. Like, I know she didn't mean that, even though I may feel this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel like when I first started like boundary work and like enforcing boundaries and having those conversations, I practiced with a few people, but
Mhm.
now it's been so many years, it's like I'm not practicing anymore. Like
Right.
I can have those conversations. They're still hard. I still don't want to do them and like I might
Mhm.
take a few weeks and I'm not saying I'm doing it perfectly, but because you've done it one, two, three, four, 5 times, on the 10th time, you're like, I've already done this a bunch of times. Like, I can do this.
Right.
It's like riding a bike
Yeah.
almost. Like, and
Yeah.
there is another person at play. There's different circumstances, different types of relationships. There's so much at play, but it's about like building confidence in yourself
Mhm.
and like sticking up for yourself, showing yourself. They might not, have my back, but I have my back and I'm
Yeah.
gonna stick up for myself and advocate for what I want. And I have a boyfriend. We've been together for almost 6 years, and it's a night and day from when we first started dating to
Yeah.
now. It's so different. I know, like during COVID, we were together for about a year. We didn't talk for 3 weeks during COVID, during lockdown. This man
Oh,
slept in the bed next to me and we froze each other out. We both froze each other out.
wow.
Both.
Wow.
Yes. And it's funny now, and like I'm like we giggle about it now, but I mean it was COVID, everyone was freaking out, and like
Yeah.
he's an entrepreneur. I was also a teacher in Jersey City at that time, so like we were both in our lowest points
Yeah.
personally, and then on
Yeah.
top of that, politics and the pandemic, people were
Yeah.
dying, like there were, and then Black Lives Matter, like everyone was talking about it a lot more, so it's like tension was so high everywhere
Yeah.
that like I don't really count that. Like I don't know that it's like a true reflection of us in our relationship, but I say all that to say that like now when I start to feel myself freezing him out or start to feel
Mhm.
myself shutting down, we've already worked through so much that like
Mhm.
we've gotten to a better place of him giving me my space and
Mhm.
me speaking up for myself or having alone time, or and it's to that point of like keep having those conversations, keep working really hard at it.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I feel like I do a lot of this with my friends and family and with my boyfriend because I do want to be a mom one day. And it's
Mhm.
like if I'm having a kid, I need to know that like we have a strong foundation with my mom, with his
Truly.
mom, with him. with my friends because having kids is crazy as fuck, and like I
Right.
need I don't want to lose friends. I know that's really common too. Like when you have
Yeah.
kids, you lose friends. People get really upset. Oh, they don't have time for me. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of want to avoid all of that in terms
Yeah.
of relationships so that people can support me in motherhood. I'm sure that it's all like I'm just doing all this work and it's
No.
not going to be fruitful, maybe, or maybe it won't be as
No, I
fruitful
don't
as
think
I
so.
hope, but I don't know. Yeah, tell me what you think about that because you're a
I
mom.
love that you're thinking about that because I didn't, you know?
Okay.
I love that you're thinking, especially when it comes to motherhood, thinking about how you want to like strengthen your relationships now in preparation for that. Because I was just like, I'm gonna have a baby and that's it. And like, no. I didn't realize the emotional piece of having a baby and not only how it affects like me, my husband, and the baby, but also like our extended family, which is our village, you know? I think that's really, really good. I had done a lot of learning and practicing after I had my child, you know? Um, so yeah, I could have saved myself some strife, some stress had I like, had some forethought to think about like the emotional pieces and like implementing boundaries for myself and for people around me because then I wouldn't have to jump those hoops while also postpartum, right?
Right. And I also talk about this a lot. It's like postpartum depression and or postpartum like struggles that mom go through. For
Mhm.
me, as someone who is not a mom, I feel like moms struggle so much because of their support system.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
they need to show up, and if I see a mother struggling, burnt out and like depressed,
Mhm.
I'm always looking at the husband like, "So what are you
Right.
doing?" Because I see your wife, I see the mother of your children struggling,
Yeah.
and I don't live with her.
Yep. Yep.
And you live with this woman. You see her and you expect these things of her or you do these things with her. What are you doing to alleviate that struggle? And God bless my
Right.
boyfriend because he's always like, "Oh God," and I'm like, I'm serious. Like I know I'm complaining about whatever. I'm like, if I'm struggling, it's your job to
That
support me, and like my
period.
friends too, because
Period.
a
Yeah.
lot of my friends have kids, and I'm always like, leave that man alone. Like let him struggle with his baby. Like I know you're
His
the
baby. Yes.
his baby, like I know you're the primary parent, and let's say you're stay at home and whatever it is, but like I don't know, I feel like the support systems have to be really solid, and so that's kind of my thought process. It's like, are we solid in our friendship? Because when I have this baby, I need people to be solid for me when my
Yep.
hormones are going crazy, when I'm
Yep.
sleep deprived, when
Yep. I need a meal, like, and I can't cook, so like, drop off a meal or
yeah,
come cook, come clean, come do something.
yeah,
Absolutely, I'm with you. Um, and yes, the mother most often the reason why mothers experience postpartum depression, anxiety, all of those things is because they don't have support. So I think in cultures like ours, like whenever a mother has a baby, like back home, the aunties come over, grandma comes over, and is like, either we have the baby or you take care of the baby, we take care of you. So
yeah,
like you're fed, the house is clean, like all the things are done that way you can take care of just the baby.
yeah,
And here we don't have that. That's like one of the big shortcomings of like Western culture is like it's like these little like the nuclear family is not it when it comes to especially that postpartum time and then just raising a child needs more than two people to take care of them
for sure.
and to raise them and to help them be productive in society. So yeah, I'm with you. So this time before even having the kids is a beautiful time to really deepen those relationships with the people around you, people in your village.
Yeah, and like I know you saw my story today, but it's like I want people to interrupt people when they are like drowning. Like a lot of
Mm,
times people are like, "Oh, let me know how I can support you." Like, no, I need people that are gonna kick my door down and call me and be like, "Bitch, you haven't answered my text message." Because I will like that's something that I do is I will like hide by myself and then 2 weeks later be like, "Bitch, I was struggling," and
same,
that's not good. That's not
same.
good. So
Yeah.
I kind of and I tell people that. Like
Mhm.
I've told people like I need you to care for me. Like,
Yeah.
like I need people to actively care for me, not just in your heart, not just in your brain, not just like
Right.
not through
Thoughts and
text.
prayers, right?
No, like I need you to provide care to
Yeah.
me. Especially like I don't know, and like being a mom, like I've always joked that like birthing is the scary part of being a mom, like
Mhm.
those 12 hours of like the kid exiting
Mhm.
your body, like
Mhm.
that's the scariest part. But the more people that I know that have kids, I'm like, I don't think that's the scariest part, which is scary because that is crazy. Like childbirth is
Yeah.
crazy, and you're gonna tell me that postpartum is even crazier? Oh my god.
It is. It is. Because there's something about, so with my second son, it was unmedicated.
Okay.
But there's something that happens like right after he comes out that like your brain is like kind of forgets how bad it was. For me, with both kids, the first 24 hours with them, I'm just like looking at them like, God, what's going to happen? Like, figure this out for me. Like, I have a child. Like, what is this? Who's going to raise this thing? And I remember not sleeping, just staring at them like, okay, like now what? Especially the first one, I literally was looking at him and he was looking back at me, just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? Oh my god. I can't imagine.
Oh my goodness. But you will be fine though. The fact that you're even thinking about these type of things before parenting lets you know that you and your baby are going to be just fine. Like you're going to be great actually.
I hope so. And like shout out to my mom because my mom is like, I'm not getting any younger. If you want me to like clean and cook for you and take care of this baby, you got to have it now sooner than later. I'm like, okay, like so she is
Let
ready to support in all the ways.
Good. And let
Yeah.
her.
Yes.
If she wants to move in for like a month or two or however long after the baby, let her. Do not fight her.
Yeah.
The biggest difference in my own like physical healing after both babies was the second one. My mom lived with us and it was night and day.
Yeah.
Like my body was able to heal properly instead of me thinking about what am I going to eat? I need to do this and that and that. Nope. I woke up. My mom would literally bring me breakfast in bed every morning. Like the baby's clothes were washed. My stuff was washed. I was able to just like literally sleep and breastfeed. And that's what you need for like the first few months, just to like bond with the baby.
Wow, amazing. I'm so happy that you had that experience. What was the difference with the first one and the second one? Like why didn't she do that with the first one?
So the first one was born in Jersey, and it was me, my husband, and his mom at the time, but she was working. So that was the difference there.
Yeah.
And then when I had the second one, they're 4 years apart. We lived down here in North Carolina, and she lived under the same roof with us, and she was retired. So it was just, all right, this is my job, this is my duty,
Yeah.
to take care of her. And I think the cultural piece is different too.
Yeah.
So in our culture, it's just normal that like the mom or the baby don't really leave the house. Like we were only allowed to leave for doctor's appointments and stuff like that. But like you stay inside, you make sure you have your soups and stuff to close your womb. Like there's a whole thing. And she was mad at me because I didn't do it right because I was too American. But I'm like, whatever.
That's
But I
funny.
took some more advice.
Yeah, I think in Colombia they have this thing. I believe it's 40 days where the woman does not leave the bed at all and doesn't do anything for the baby other than like breastfeeding. But the woman just stays in bed and heals.
Yep.
And obviously, I mean, the U.S. there's not even like mandatory paid leave.
Right.
So
Right.
if you have a job, you're going back after 6 weeks. What is that, 45 days? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's obviously very different, but I'm really happy that
Yeah.
you had that experience with the second
I
one.
did.
It's very like
Yeah.
healing and it's a very nice way to go into being a mother to
Yeah.
that child. You're not freaking out, you're not burnt
Yep.
out. It's a
Yep.
positive way. Yeah.
I can really go in about how I hate to see a mother who just had the baby and is back to work. It breaks my heart
Yeah.
because I know most people would like that time just to recover. And it's so not fair how this place is set up. It's just not right. Or,
For sure.
yeah.
No, no, and I agree. I mean, I have a cousin, she had a baby and like 2 days later she went back to work, but
Oh,
because she really loves her work
okay.
and I think both her parents were retired and she was like I feel 100% fine and like I want
Hmm.
to go.
Hmm.
So like that's a kind of different conversation than like
Sure.
women who have no choice but
Yes.
to go back to work and they're still physically not healed or still struggling through the
Right.
early months, like
Hormonal changes, yeah.
yeah, and like babies, they're not eating consistently and you have to like watch their bathroom, like have to check their diapers if they're using,
Mhm.
going to the bathroom and stuff. There's so much going on and then you have to like go into work. It's like it's so
Right.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
A lot.
Always so much to consider. I follow a lot of therapists and mental health people on social media, right? And people that also follow those people. So whenever I see posts like that deal with mental health in social media, it usually is like boundaries is framed as like how you're punishing the people in your life. And one thing that I really love about this book is that the reframe is that boundaries are really healing for us, you know? Like the more we enforce our boundaries, like we communicate them and we teach people how we want to be treated essentially, right?
Yep.
The better it is for us because like we're less burnt out, we're sleeping better, we have more time for the things that we love. It just brings us like just a better quality of life in general, and the focus is not them, the focus is really us, and that's what it should be. So I just really appreciated that piece.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important that you tell people what your expectations are and what you want
Hmm.
because if they can't or they don't want to, then that's the point where you reevaluate the relationship or how you show up for them as a friend or how you move forward. But a lot of times people if they don't know, how can they do that?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
have to tell them, you have to have the conversation, um, to make sure that you're having the friendships that you want, you can't and again, it's like we're lucky that we're able to do these things because I have so many friends who aren't in the position to even like consider that. They're so burnt
Mhm.
out and so
Yeah.
like on go go go. It's like, "What? You want me to think about like my relationship with my friend? Like I can't think about that. I have to go to work. I got to get these kids to school and like
Right.
and so I think that all kind of goes back to like the support system that we're talking about, and it's especially like two friends where they're both moms and like they're
Mhm.
both struggling. Like I've heard a
Mhm.
lot of people and like you understand that your friend is going through something because you're going through it too. But again, it's like you have to really show people and express what you want so that they can show up in the way that you
That you
want
need them.
that you
Yep.
need them to and you build that bond and strengthen that bond with your friend.
And also one thing that I didn't realize were like the type of boundaries. So the porous boundaries, rigid boundaries. What was the other one? I forget.
Healthy, rigid and
Yes.
porous is when you like prioritize other
Healthy.
people. Healthy
Mhm.
is a
Mhm.
good balance, and then rigid is where you're like, no, I don't care about other people. And yeah.
Yes.
Did you do that quiz at the back of the book?
I didn't.
You
I
did
didn't do
it?
the quiz.
I did do it and I got I got there's how many were there? There's 14 questions, I guess, something like
Mhm.
that. And I had 7 healthy, so that's good.
Sure.
Like overwhelmingly healthy, but I had 5 rigid
It's okay.
and 2 porous. I know, and I think it was a really good practice too because like in the book, there's all these like exercises and like quizzes and stuff. And I feel like it's really good to take a look at that because I was like, "Oh no, I have these rigid
Yeah.
boundaries with people that I care about." And at the end of the day, you have those things to protect yourself,
Mhm.
like, "No, I'm not gonna, let's say, text people on Sundays," right?
Mhm.
It's like you're trying to protect yourself, but sometimes your friends want to connect and Sunday's the only day that they can talk.
Right.
And so
Right.
you don't need to kick people out or put up these walls like some
Yep.
and I think a lot of times people confuse like boundaries with those walls, but that's like a
Yep.
misconception. At one point she was talking about how ultimatums are good when used correctly to advocate for what you want and not to punish people.
Right.
And so it's like, we think of ultimatums and it's like, you're going to give them an ultimatum. Like, that's so bad.
Mhm.
You're so evil. And it's like, well, no, like, if you're not going to be the type of friend that I need, why are we going to be friends then? Like, I'm
Right.
going to just let
Yeah.
you like hurt me regularly. Like,
Right.
that's not good either. So I think it's really good to question your boundaries and like analyze them and kind of make shifts where necessary and communicate them constantly.
Yeah.
And that's literally what she's talking about with all that
Yeah.
boundary work.
For sure. And then going to the other extreme, the poorest ones. So if I have a boundary that I rarely enforce, nobody's gonna take that thing serious. So I can't get mad, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a really good, like, I'm like, oh, shoot, I didn't realize that. So,
Mhm.
like, you gotta take yourself seriously for people to take you seriously as well. So that was like really eye opening for me.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I'm glad that we read the book. I feel like we both had realizations, and we both like know like mental health talk and boundary stuff, but I feel like this did a really good job of making you question things within yourself
Hmm.
because of all those prompts. It wasn't just education, education, learn, learn, learn. It was like, okay, well what about like what are you doing? Like,
Right,
you
right.
know, and I like that part of it. So I'm glad that we both saw value in the book.
Same, same. I
Yeah.
think this is a nice book for a lot of people to read, even like friends to read together or partners to read together. Yeah.
That's a good idea even, because they had I know that she has a section specifically for, like, long-term relationships or, like, new
Hmm.
relationships. She
Hmm.
covered every freaking topic, work, education, like, she literally talked about so many different things, so I think that's a really good idea if people wanna, do this with their significant other,
Yep.
just to check in. So I like that discussion. I'm gonna give this to my boyfriend and be like, "Tell me what you think about chapter 7, page."
Paragraph 4
Yeah.
says, what are your thoughts?
Exactly, exactly. And one thing that I wanna do is I wanna know, tell me a little bit about your podcast, because I know some people have listened to this podcast and they love
Mhm.
you, they wanna listen to you and support you, so tell me a little bit about your podcast.
So my podcast is called Be Well Sis. It's a wellness podcast that specifically amplifies the experiences of Black women. I started the podcast back in 2020, and the reason why was because typically in the wellness space, it really elevates like thinness, whiteness, and affluence. And I'm just like, all right, hold on. So the conversations really speak to the things that we are experiencing, and then also just showing people that they are experts in their own lives. So you don't have to be necessarily a medical doctor or in the medical field, but there is some expertise that you have just because you've lived. And I want to hear your story. So yeah, that is Be Well Sis.
I love that. And I haven't actually listened to one of your podcast episodes, but I'm going
Mhm.
to. Like I said, my
Okay.
my brain is scrambled eggs lately, but one of the things that I'm doing is trying to listen to more podcasts, read more books, and kind of do things that bring make me happy. So
I
that's
get it.
one of the things on my list. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and leave a review. New episodes are uploaded every other Monday. You can also follow me on social media at Chicklet Podcast. And remember, if you have any book recommendations or want to be on the podcast, let me know. Thank you for listening.